I kind of think that what bothered me about it is that it just painted this huge dire situation, that the situation has actually deteriorated during the past year, and at present the key positions of police chief, finance director, public director, building official are filled with interim or contract new employees. I would like to kind of switch that around and say that because of the efforts of John Danielson, who has been so key in helping us right this ship, that we have had key employees retire, and we filled those positions with contract employees, thus, getting us on track, and we need to have him continue, working us through to help right the ship.
That's fine.
Just to kind of, I just felt that the situation has actually deteriorated during the past. I think it's gotten better because of City Manager John Daniels' leadership in taking those key employees and reducing our overhead by contracting it out. And because of that, we don't want to lose them right now. We need another 12 months.
I don't have any problem with what you're saying. Why don't you write it up?
Does that seem reasonable? Does that?
If we all agree.
I don't know. That's what bothered me.
I don't think that's a problem. You're just saying it hasn't deteriorated, but we still need to correct the situation.
That's okay, Bush.
I have that language. I can make that.
Can you do that?
I can do that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
We need to change the mayor's name anyway. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Change
good.
the name of the mayor.
All right, so with the amendment, then, what's,
There's one other question I have. Are we actually involved in several major lawsuits where John Danielson is the key witness?
Yes, we are.
Several?
Yes.
we haven't had a briefed on those in special counsel.
The reason they're not laid out is because I will tell you, quite frankly, the board of CalPERS is comprised mainly of union members, and the fact that we have laid off many union people and have been sued because of it, I would rather not shine a light on it.
That's fine, just so long as it's factually correct.
It is actually correct.
That's fine.
There's
Okay.
a motion, a second, and amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Been passed.
Okay.
You know, it's a change.
Okay, item 12, Kathy.
This could take a while, if you want to move it to the end.
Let's do it.
I think there's a lot of interest in the new downside.
All right. For a while now, I think I've been overly solicitous of not raising issues about the new town center because I've had my eyes on other things, and I don't think I've been doing my due diligence, believing that this is in the hands of other people and has been since 2005, when the Buildings and Facilities Group was looking at this issue. But having looked at this Town Center Task Force report and recognizing that this issue is going to be coming to the town, namely this council, for determination in January of the new year, and having seen some very odd things happening on the website that is asking citizens to make a determination, I thought the time had come for me to look a little more closely, and I was prompted by questions being raised by one of our own council members on another issue, and thought maybe it's time I do some due diligence. And so I have a number of questions that I think we need answered as a council and as a community before we really can accept this Town Center Task Force report. And while it says update only, I think that by accepting it, it means that we move forward with some of the statements and considerations in it, and I'm not sure that we should or can. The first thing that concerns me, and the question that I have, is having gone through a multitude of papers from the Town Center Task Force, which do not include the minutes from last year or the year before, because for some reason none of them are posted, nor are any of the minutes from 2007, nor are any of the early minutes from the first couple of years of the Building and Facilities Group. And I've spoken with Teresa about this, and we don't quite know why none of those minutes appear, but they're going to hopefully be rectified. Is just what is the proposed size of the town center? You know, I've tried to add up all the different numbers, and I come up with various amounts, but it's really very difficult to tell what the size is of this proposed town center, let alone the cost. When you look at what is being proposed in a bond measure. It talks about $12 million. Phil Warren's, in his evaluations, looking at the various options, talks about $10 million. But I don't get any figure as to a bottom line amount. It's all sort of broken down in various figures, but you don't have any idea of even a ballpark figure of what we're talking about here. I asked Teresa as of a day or so ago how many people had evaluated the drawings in accordance with the matrix that was being utilized, that they had been directed to, and her response was 12. But the matrix changed from that which was approved by the council last September 30th, 2010, the one that we looked at our regular meeting, September 15th, 16th of last year, which was part of the SOQ, the Statement of Qualifications proposal that was sent out to the architects. And that made me wonder why. Phil Lively, who he himself said was the person tasked with creating the matrix for scoring the architects, said that he was creating a process which eliminates any bias in choosing an architect. And yet the Town Center Task Force, at its meeting in early November, November 2nd, revised that matrix and by altering the weights in some categories and deleting some altogether, and said it would have staff check with the architects to see whether they had any issues. But there's absolutely no feedback as to whether the architects did have any issues, and that, once again, is not the matrix that was approved by council. No one ever came back to council and asked council whether or not we approved of this matrix, which was part of the proposal that we did approve less than a year ago. So I wonder why that wasn't brought back to council, and why it was changed and different weights were given for various categories, and why I understand Mr. Lively might not have even been aware of it. Moreover, some of you may have noticed the website directed viewers to a site drawing which indicated a library. Yet at the October community meeting, and as you can see from the diagrams and drawings on the wall, there was no library in any of those site drawings, nor does the proposal state that it's supposed to be for a library. It's supposed to be for 3 different categories: administration, police, public works, building, and public works, building, and for, I guess, zoning, planning. Moreover, the request for the proposal says that the firms chosen to submit the conceptual design shall prepare the submittal based on guidelines. And it refers to the guidelines. And one can't help but wonder when if they went beyond those guidelines, is that satisfactory? When asked about the reference to the library, and someone did ask one of the firms that did submit the library in its revised drawings, which, by the way, were dated in late summer of 2011, the firm indicated that they'd been asked to do so in response to public input. But was the other architectural firm given that same advantage to submit an altered drawing? And if so, is that not, once again, beyond the scope of the guidelines, which was what the whole proposal was about, and thus did it not invalidate the proposals? And why was it even put on the website to begin with? Who asked? Why was it put there? And while it was removed after a week or so, clearly some of those people responded to that diagram while others did not. So does it not affect the validity of the responses? Those are all questions I think we need to consider and answer. Does it invalidate the responses? Does it invalidate the process? How are the space needs being determined? We talk about trending and future trends, but clearly there's a trending for common shared workspaces. But having gone through the various materials, there seems to have been no acknowledgement of a trending for common areas, such as kitchens, lounges, or other common workspaces. For the police department, they talk about 7 private offices, including not only a private office for the police chief, which I acknowledge is important, but for lieutenant, for sergeants, for assistants. Separate kitchens, do we really need separate kitchens for various offices? I would think if it's a small enough staff in Atherton, separate kitchens might not be necessary, nor separate lounges. We talk about rooms for 15 police cars and 5 motorcycles. I wasn't even aware we had 5 motorcycles. I can't help but wonder, has there been any reevaluation in light of the outsourcing that has occurred in the building, planning, and public works department? And the future outsourcing that could be considered, for example, in dispatch, and the effect it would have on the size of this building, or the effect on the option that Mr. Warren's mentioned of utilizing the library if it were to move, of using the library for public works and building and planning. I also couldn't help but wonder, how is staff time being accounted for by the Town Center Task Force? Particularly when much of the staff, as we've already found, is being outsourced and thus is contractual. It's important to know how we're accounting for that cost, who's attending, and what records are being kept. There is no indication, and I can't tell from the absence of minutes, who has been attending and how much money has been spent on this, or how much staff time has been expended, which includes, of course, all the overhead, as we found out, is rolled up into staff time. And then the question arises, how can building department funds, $1.8 million, be used to hire an architect for a town center, of which the building department is only a very small part? If you see Mr. Warren's estimates, and he has 3 or 4 options in his report last year, which was in our study in September, in none of the alternatives that he mentions does the building department, which is brought together with not only planning, but also public works, in none of the options does the building department part of the town center cost $1.8 million. In the highest proportionate analysis that he projects, it's 1.7. In all of the others, it's considerably less. So how can we even think of utilizing that $1.8 million fund right off the bat, when it doesn't even look like any of the options that are being looked at would expend all of those funds? Moreover, as the report from the Town Center Task Force, which was delivered last September, itself says, those funds have been set aside in a special reserve account, restricted for the construction of a new building department. Without a guaranteed source of funds for the department, such as a bond measure that has passed, it's inappropriate to use more than a proportionate amount of those funds, which would be attributable to the building department, for hiring of an architect. And finally, why not a town center master plan? We've heard a lot about master plan, master plan, master plan. And tonight we're going to be talking about revising the master plan for the park to look at the possibility of a library going in the park. The possibility merely because that has been determined to be the preferred site, not the definitive site, the preferred site, based upon a council vote for a prospective library. But a town center is something that this town has been considering since 2005, almost 6 years. It began with the Building and Facilities Committee. Yet not once have any of the multitude of committees that have been looking at a town center ever thought about a master plan. You don't need a library to think about the town center master plan. When you're talking about closing Station Lane and moving a railroad station, it would seem to me just good common sense that you would take it upon yourself and say, it's about time we looked at a master plan for a town center. The library shouldn't be controlling this thing, and it shouldn't be guiding this thing, and it shouldn't be the impetus for people to start saying on the town center committee, you know what, it's our job to look at a town center plan. It's just good common sense for us to see what it is we're doing with our own buildings that we're thinking of building. And that's what I have to say. I don't think this task force report should be accepted, because one of the things it definitely says is we want to consider using building department funds to contract for a chosen architect. I think that's inappropriate, if not illegal. I think that there are a number of questions, as I think I've indicated, that should be answered and that have been left unanswered and incredibly ambiguous for too long. And I think the process has been grossly skewed by some of the things that have happened on the website, with the matrix, and with that site drawing.
So do we have any other council comments?
Yeah.
Jim?
I have been concerned for some time. The 1.8 million that we have in the building should not be used at all until we have, say, 70% commitments from our residents for the rest of the money. We're talking about, I don't know, anywhere from 15 to 20 million for the new town center. I don't really know what the real number is, but it doesn't really matter. And therefore, we could end up spending the 1.8 million, not being able to get the contributions, so we just wasted 1.8 million. So my belief is, let's hold spending the 1.8 million until such time as we have a substantial part of the rest of it committed by our residents. I mean, we already have drawings of the new town center, which are up here, we can all look at, and you can see them right here. My belief is that should be enough to attract residents if they're thinking of contributing to the town center. I don't think we should need much more than that. And therefore, I would put a hold on that 1.8 million until such time that we had major commitments. I don't know whether it's 70%, 80%, we could discuss that later, but certainly until we get some real major commitments.
Jerry?
I think the agenda item has to do with the letter here, and we're kind of getting off into, I think, some areas that were planned to be presented at the January meeting for discussion. Some of the things that are being talked about right now, I think, are key points to be talked about at that January meeting. I think this was an attempt to bring the council up to date. It doesn't go into specifics in terms of the intent of what the building department funds would be specifically used for. And I think that a good deal going much deeper into this, I think, is going beyond the agenda item. And I move acceptance of the letter.
I'll second.
Well, do you have any comments?
No.
Any public comments?
Charles Marsala, Emily. I didn't actually, wasn't here for this, but it was good to see what's going on. I'll give you my thoughts on this because I was obviously involved with this a lot. This actually goes back, as far as I can tell, to 1995, when Nan Chapman and Dee Dee Fisher started this project, and the first survey was done, I think it was by Square 4 or something with a 4 in it, G4 Consultants or whatever. And then we got into parcel tax elections and changing of council members, and then it sits. So in 2005, as an engineer, I thought this was an important process. It was actually the very first council meeting I ever went to was when we got a thing in the mail to go to this about what we needed to do to get rid of those trailers. At that point, it takes a few years of being a council member until you feel like you can take the shots you're going to take, because these areas we know are very confrontational, and people, you have to know what you're talking about if you're going to say, listen, we got to move forward with one of these projects. So in 2005, I was chairing the facilities, started it. 2007, started pushing it. There was some feedback, the library should be part of it, this or that. I was touring all around. Jim and I went to a few places. Jerry Gruber is now gone, went a few places. William Grenley is not here. We spent a lot of energy in 7 and 8, maybe into 9, on the Blue Ribbon Task Force trying to put this together to move this forward, how much space is going to be needed, how much money can be raised. I was in favor at that time that Obama had the TARP money, that there was, the government, the feds would give you 1/3 of the interest that you need on bonds. And to put it to a vote, test the residents. You let them know we need to do this, and you know, $50 a month for 30 years, you could pay for the center, we would have been done with it. So there's been some things here, but if you keep pushing this back, some of you might be gone off the council, and then the new council members come in and they start having to get their feet wet again, and it's just going to go on for 20 years. So at one point, you know, my uncle used to say, when you shoot in the pool, shoot, you know, and let's shoot the ball and start it rolling with this, and we can worry about every detail, but you need to do that. The other issues are raised as far as funding and building department money, I don't really know all the nitty-gritty of that anymore, but I really think you got to take it. You got something good here. You got some drawings, and you get the ball rolling with this, and not have worry about every detail on this project. Because some of you will be gone, and then the ball will drop, and the new people will want to get seated and pick it up again.
Any other public comments?
Valerie Gardner, 18 McCormick Lane. I appreciate the fact that Kathy mentioned that there's no minutes on the town website, because I've also been concerned about this fact, although not with respect to the town center project, but with respect to the library project. The town center project, you're being asked to accept a report. For the library project, you've already voted on a major motion with respect to the library.
We're not.
And yet there are no
excuse me-
minutes
Excuse me for just a second, please.
on the website for the
Excuse me
library.
for just a second. I don't like to interrupt the public, but we are getting off on another item that actually has a component on the agenda. If she wants to comment on the library, that would be the appropriate time, as opposed to now where we're talking about the town center.
Do you have any
Okay, my
comments?
comments are directed towards the fact of the lack of minutes on the website pertaining to important decisions, and when there's no minutes posted on the website relative to decisions that have been taken by the council, I think that's pretty hypocritical. Thank you.
Any other comments specifically on the new town center?
Thanks, Dan.
All right, then we'll bring it back to the council. Are there any other comments?
Yeah, I don't really know what we're approving here, to be honest.
We're not.
And my recommendation is that we just table this motion until January meeting when we have a full report.
We're just accepting the report.
Yeah, I think that the action
It's
here
just
is
informational.
just, it says receive report.
It's just information.
So I think we've received it.
We received it. That's
So I
fine.
think that we've got some items that we're gonna need to hit and discuss in the January meeting. So
Absolutely.
if staff can make sure that we have the sub-bullets there that we can discuss at the time, that would be good.
I would like to state that to the extent I've raised a whole bunch of questions, I would like to have a report that responds to them. I don't think that pushing anything forward when there's a question of legality of process is important. It's more important to push it forward than to follow the process.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Unless somebody withdraws it, we've got to do something.
I'd like to move that we withdraw the motion because we're just receiving the report for a subsequent meeting where we'll cover a number of items.
But that is consent item is the fact that we've received the report. We may take a new action as it's saying we received the report.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if you do nothing, you still receive the report. It's there. It's-
Okay, we received the report, so we'll vote on receiving the report. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The last item that was on the consent item was more of a comment on number 17, with the contract for Deborah Alker, who is the interim finance director. And I realize it's an hourly rate, but my question to the interim finance director is, do you think it'd be pertinent to put in a number of, say, 3 days a week on an average for a month? What do you think it would be a monthly commitment?
Mayor, if I may, the agreement with Deborah is for 20 to 30 hours a month. Weekly. And that's, part-time. She's finishing up some contracting work with the city of San Carlos, and we're hoping at some point, because I think she's an excellent candidate, that we would consider her potentially for the full-time position. But there's no overtime. It was based on the previous finance director's salary, the qualifications of Deborah, and consideration of the town and its needs right now.
So Deborah, do you believe that's adequate for, you've been here for a couple of days looking through all the documentation and trying to get your feet on the ground? Do you feel that that's adequate amount of time, or do you need more time?
In the statement of work, we do list that there's 25 to 30 hours expected, but if there is more required, I'll be working with the city manager to make sure that the town is consistent.
All right.
John, I think, at least based on my understanding, that was all that Deborah could work.
Well, currently with her other duties and responsibilities, and we'll look at that time over the long haul. That some weeks maybe less, some weeks maybe more.
That's right,
audit
for a
season.
monthly thing.
And we'll report those back to you over time. And your desire, Mayor, to look at long-term placements, this is a test run in a lot of ways, so it's good.
It's a 5-month.
Is it a 5-month?
5 months. Oh,
Well,
almost 6. Excuse me.
It goes through May.
Yeah, May 5th.
Certainly take a look at it and see what council wants to do at a later time.
All right.
I move to approve item number 17 as written.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Was there any public comment, Mayor, on that?
Public comment?
I'm sorry, for the record, thank you.
Okay. We move now to the regular agenda. So on the regular agenda, the first item is continuation of the event bookings at Holbrook Palmer Park. So, Mr. Danielson?
Mr. Tyler is going to be making the presentation this evening. I would, up front, well, normally I'd say this at the end, we'll probably need to get direction from council on this, either or this evening, because we have a strong suspicion that if no decision is drawn tonight, we'll probably lose the 2012 season, which will assume that that's the intent of council. Okay? All right, with that, I'll turn over to Tyler.
Mayor and members of the council, item number 19 on the agenda today seeks your direction as to whether or not staff should continue booking for weddings, social, and corporate events at Holbrook Palmer Park for the 2012 fiscal year. In October, council directed staff to provide further fiscal information regarding the profitability of resuming these events. In November, council asked staff to refine the revenue expenditure numbers from years past to give a clearer picture of what could be realistically expected by revenues versus costs for 2012. The changes in this report from the November meeting consist of the following. We've added a $1,250 expense to factor in depreciation of the carpeting in the pavilion, as well as an $8,600 deduction to proposed revenues. They were subtracted due to the possible loss of bookings for 2012. When we originally did the report, it was in October. We're expecting the possibility of a shortfall in reservations for the revenues this time. So if you have any questions.
Council?
I have comments. Not exactly questions.
I have to say, I'm disappointed in this report, and if there's a reporter here, I would really like this to be reported. I can't believe how many times we've asked for clarity. This is the third time this has come before us. And we talk about transparency, we talk about trying to make it clear for people, not just the people who are seated here tonight, the people in this community, to know what's going on. And you know, there's so much misinformation about, does this park make money, doesn't it make money from special events? I don't know. And I'm tired of hearing a former council member say at a meeting, oh, it makes $90,000 a year, or it loses money, or it makes $200,000 a year, or there's no wonder people don't know when we get information like this and it's the third time. I looked at this report and I said, something doesn't seem right to me. What is it? And I went back over the last two council reports. The last one wasn't much different, except this one had carpet depreciation. I looked at the utilities and I saw electricity, gas, water, sewer, phone, and I averaged it out. It came to $433 a month for all those things. Not bad. For all of those things. That's the main house and the pavilion. Somehow it's suspect to me that $433 for water, gas, electricity, and the phone. I don't know. I'd love to see those bills that validate that. But even more, I noticed that it showed revenue for 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, and I thought, darn, we didn't have revenue. There was always a loss in those years. Where is the loss? And it took me going back 2 months to when Louise Ho was here as our finance director, and I asked her the question, can we make money, or are we going to end up using taxpayer funds to subsidize what are mostly non-Atherton events at that park? And still, people in this town don't recognize. I'm not against other people using our park. Heavens, no. We use plenty of other towns' facilities. But I am not in favor of having our taxpayer money subsidize people's weddings there, whether they're Atherton residents or not, or people's other events there, whatever kind of event it is. That's for them to pay for, not for Atherton taxpayers. And Louise said to me, said to this council, it could be $30,000. And I said, or could it be a loss? Well, it could be, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. And that was the last we heard from Louise because she's not here anymore. The next month we got a statement that just showed revenue. No longer the profit and loss columns, which showed every year a loss for a 4-year total loss of $343,000. What happened to the $343,000 loss for those 4 years? Suddenly, it's not there anymore. It shows only revenue, which makes it look as if we're dragging our feet and not bringing in this revenue because we're not booking events. Utterly ridiculous. Doesn't show the picture. It makes us look like fools, makes us look like really bad people that we're not booking events at that park. And it's not true. But what did you do? You added carpet depreciation. Yay! Did anyone think about, what about the garbage expense? Heavens, look at how much garbage has gone up. All of our, not all, but heavens, a lot of residents are complaining about the cost of garbage going up. When we don't have special events there, like 800 Google people in one day, clearly we must have less garbage. What about insurance? Got to be costing us insurance, especially since we're having people in a house that has never even been checked to be earthquake proof, because we don't want to incur the expense, which could be, what, $20,000 to have an earthquake check? And although it's been bolted to a foundation, mine was bolted twice to a foundation, and they came and said, it's not earthquake proof. You need it 3 times bolted, and you need shear wall. But we're not even willing to go in there and have the house tested for earthquake insurance, whether it's earthquake proof. What's the insurance cost on that? One night I passed by and there was a corporate event there, and I thought, you suckers, you don't even know you're in a house that hasn't even been checked for earthquake. If it comes down, are we liable? Building depreciation. We have people in there. Clearly, if we didn't have that amount of number of events there, we wouldn't have that kind of wear and tear on the buildings, or on the grass, or on the sprinkler system. I know what it costs to have to repair that sprinkler system. I used to look at the what we call warrants, which are bills, and I kept wondering whether or not we had the best sprinkler supply system on the peninsula, better than Orchard Supply, because it was costing us thousands and thousands of dollars a month. What about labor? You have someone who's got to be doing bookings, someone who has to have oversight. For a while there, I understood it was someone on the police staff. That's got to be costing us, even if we no longer have someone who's just responsible for bookings at a cost that used to be about $130,000, $140,000 a year. You have someone for repairs and general maintenance, someone for setup, someone for breakdown, someone for oversight at the event, which is a minimum number of hours, I remember. Someone who has always paid extra attention to that one area. And I know that because when we walked the site with Jerry Gruber, and you were with me, Jim, someone who did nothing the whole 2 hours we were there except pick up a palm leaf while he was on a golf cart, but finally was paying some attention to putting bark down over some weeds right outside the pavilion. And that was the only work that was being done. What about replacement costs? If you don't have events there, then you don't have to worry nearly as much about the kitchen appliances or windows or as I said, sprinkler heads. What about the costs of the site, the parking, the driveways, the elevator that we put in, major sewer repair that cost us a bundle recently, the roof repair, the painting of the buildings inside and out. All of that is increased phenomenally because we have events there. But we've added $1,200 for carpet depreciation. And then we think we're going to come out with a net revenue of $85,000, but none of these other things have been entered into the equation. I ask you, this is great accounting we have here in this town. We are really great business people. Mind-boggling to me, mind-boggling. How on earth can I be responsible to the people of this town, and this is the third time, and say, I don't know what these things cost. I don't know whether they've been considered. I don't know why we had a loss of $343,000 for 4 years, but now we're projecting